Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another transfer show on the Babbling Irons channel. Today, we've got myself, Mike, and Sloth again. And unfortunately, lads, we thought we were going to get some exciting news last night, and today has just been an absolute roller coaster. It looks like, we had Fabrizio Romano, the old reliable Twitter source these days, saying that we're getting closer for Danjuma, and we're pushing on that for a kind of £40 million deal, and just looking to kind of get sorted on the personal terms, but. Now we've had just back and forth all day. It looks like Moyes is kind of pushing for Lingard again and isn't kind of set on Danjuma or has his reservations about him. So I guess the first place to start is I think it's come out that Moyes has slight reservations that Danjuma wouldn't be a great fit in the squad due to his kind of attitude in inverted quotation marks just before his agent starts quoting us, because I've seen him quote TalkSport already about the attitude problems. So I guess that's the first place to start. Why is Moyes having these reservations about Danjuma?
Right, before we even tackle that, can I just say I don't understand this issue with the attitude, because it's baffling to me that we're talking about it in terms of, everyone praises Ronaldo's attitude, like, oh, isn't it a great winning mentality? But he's known to be quite difficult. Like he's known to be difficult, and people will talk so much about the importance of a winning mentality, which is precisely what we're hearing. He's quite highly strung. He's got this winning mentality. He wants to be the best. He wants to perform, and he doesn't really, go out drinking because he is a strict Muslim, which that's not an attitude problem in my opinion. Like, I don't see how it's a problem. But also, when you have this weird contrast of apparently we want Dennis now, I'm not saying they're bad people. Like, I'm not saying anyone's a bad person in this out. I know Dennis had a horrible personal circumstances which could have sparked these incidents. I don't know what happened, but I do know what he did, and causing problems, throwing strops, reported issues with youth team players, but drink driving incidents as well. Now, how is that a better fit for a dressing room than someone who is a bit highly strung and wants to win but doesn't drink? It doesn't ring true to me. I don't understand it. So
I think it's more.
Can someone help me? Help me understand.
He's unapologetic in his approach. So it's interesting. Obviously, you made reference to the TalkSport one where comments were made about his temperament. Now, what is funny is his agent then directly tweeted at the journalist making the comment saying, you're making basically allegations against a player you have no knowledge of. Funny enough, also then retweeted by Danjuma. So it's easy for us to talk on speculation and say, yeah, okay, maybe he does have a bad attitude, or maybe that I think it's probably easier to say that he maybe doesn't gel well with others because he has a personality that maybe some find abrasive, but maybe it's abrasive because he puts a very high demand on himself and puts that on others. And due to that, that doesn't always meld with certain people because they don't like maybe to be told you should do more. And maybe he doesn't take criticism very well. We don't know. It's all speculation. But if his main problem is the fact that he rubs people up the wrong way because he demands the best in himself, his teammates, and hates losing, is that actually a bad quality in that he demands so much of his teammates? Yes, there is overstepping the mark. But that's when your manager comes in to go, no, this is the line. You cross it, there are repercussions. Otherwise, this is the line. Anything within those bounds is fine. But the other thing that I have with this, and I put this out earlier as well, was, and I've put out a couple on this thing today, but we are apparently, or there is apparent reservation around his attitude. And I'm going to put that in inverted commas because we don't know about this, so it's all speculation. There's concerns about his personality. Let's say that, not attitude, personality, and his personality traits, and that they could cause ruptions within the team. And yet, there is no reservations about a player who hasn't played for the past year, who, for all of the posturing and leaks that he was interested, never handed in a transfer request, never kicked up a fuss. Also, his attitude is never questioned, yet was called out directly by a club legend, which was Paul Scholes, as one of the main links that undermined Ralph Rangnick the entire tenure that he was there. Also, seems more interested in being a TikTok star than being a footballer. Has a lot of things that go on outside of football. And what frustrates me is that there's this player that seems we keep getting told wants to sign or be there, but there's always these talks around wants more money, wants to assess his options. Now, granted, he's in a very good position because he can view those. But if you are interested and you've had a whole season of not playing football and you have a club that is essentially wants to put you in as arguably is going to be treated like the star player who is going to be the fulcrum of your team and what the team's going to be built around along with Declan Rice, which we've heard is also another reason as to some of those reservations from signing. Why isn't that attitude questioned? Why is someone who has basically spent the last year not playing football, who has been directly called out as to an undermining force against a manager and leaking information? Again, this is rumour. This is going off of hearsay and off of what Paul Scholes has said. But again, you could argue he probably has some pretty good sources in Man United. And so why is that attitude not talked about or deemed as a poor attitude? Whereas the comments we're seeing around Danjuma seems to be around he's very demanding and that comes across as abrasive or arrogant.
Even beyond that, in terms of things that are completely undeniable, his brother is constantly kicking up a fuss. Like we've been in this situation before with brothers who've caused problems. And I put out a tweet where I said it's a bit worrying to me that we seem to be chasing Lingard and mentioned those and some of those issues, as opposed to a player who is performing well in the league and in the Champions League, but we're putting it on hold for Lingard. Now, you get the usual shouts of, "Oh, I'm going to trust Moyes," which I really want us to sign Moyes targets, but I just don't understand this train of thought. If he wants to join, he could have easily done by now. He could have easily made it clear, and he could have easily just gone, right, my contract's up in the next month, tweeted out some irons, whatever. Because let's face it, realistically, we are his best option if he's motivated by what we keep hearing he's motivated by. If he wants to get back in the England squad, we are his best option, because going abroad doesn't work unless you are 20 years old and you're someone like Tomori. It doesn't work unless you're Bellingham. He's 29, which is not an issue at all. But when you're trying to get in the England squad, if you go abroad at 29, that's pretty much, and it's pretty much a write-off, because you're not going to go to Barcelona, you're not going to go to Real Madrid, and in the Premier League, who is the better option for him that is rumored to be interested? Newcastle is not a better option for him, and that's no offense to Newcastle. It's a fantastic project they've got going there, but realistically, he can put himself in the shop window more for Southgate with games in Europe of a higher caliber, with players around him like Rice, who he knows that Southgate's going to be watching. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think with Lingard, it's not the case that we've just made an interest in him this summer. We basically revived his career at a stage where it needed reviving. We got him back in that England squad for those friendlies. There was real talk that he would be part of that Euro squad and be really a part of that. And that summer, he had the option to come to us. We wanted him to sign, and he chose Man United. He wanted to try and get back into that squad, which I think most West Ham fans understood because of the circumstance of it. And if Man United are saying they want to keep you and that this manager has plans for you, of course you're going to stay. It's his club. But then it wasn't just that rejection. It was in January when he wasn't getting minutes again. And we then approached him to sign him in January. He still favoured a move to Newcastle. I think people, again, are forgetting that he didn't really want to join us. I feel like we are very much a safety net for Jesse Lingard right now. And we're just sitting here waiting when there's other players out there like Danjuma who are going to improve our squad, arguably could even improve it more than what Jesse Lingard could next season, because Lingard was fantastic for us. Let's not make a mistake of that. 13 goals and assists in however many games from January is absolutely outstanding. But he had motivations then. He wanted to get back into that England team. He wanted to impress Man United. Now, he doesn't have that. He's a free agent. Tomorrow he'll be a free agent. And where's that motivation going to be? Because he's not going to get in the World Cup squad. It's too late for that. It's very unlikely he's going to score 10 goals by the time we go off to Qatar. So he doesn't have that motivation if he does come to us. Whereas Danjuma, all I've seen from his side is, Moyes has question marks over his attitude. But from my point of view, it's not an attitude problem. It's that he demands success from his other players. And you saw that with the likes of Arnautovic, with the likes of Payet. They are players that need better players around them, and they will demand that on the pitch. And if you can't take that as a player, then, and if that's going to demoralise the squad because of one player saying to you that you're not performing to the standards that it should be, and he demands, I don't see any problem with that. I don't see what the issue could be. Why Moyes is scared of that? Because I think with Lingard, we know he's going to be safe. We know he gets on with the squad. We know he's this likable character online, and when he's performing well, all these TikTok dances and whatever, it's great. But if he's not performing and he's still doing those TikTok dances, West Ham fans will change like that. It's not the case of we're going to love Jesse Lingard if he signs throughout the entirety. If he's not performing on the pitch, we will say exactly the same. It's happened with so many players over the years. And Danjuma, for me, is at a better stage of his career. He's 4 years younger. He's performed in the Champions League last season. He's performed in the La Liga last season for a Villarreal side that definitely overachieved. So I don't understand where Moyes is coming from. I understand we have to back him, but I don't get his point on Danjuma, and that is the biggest issue.
Well, yeah, so just for a little bit of balance, what I would say, so I said this earlier, that Moyes has arguably deserved that bit of grace from us as fans, and also the board, in that if he doesn't favour a player, whether we agree with it or not, we can be unhappy about it, we can debate it, we can be angry about it. Every single one of those emotions is valid. Anyone saying they aren't, to be honest, you don't have any right to tell someone how they feel is wrong. Simple as that. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel, and you're allowed to vent that frustration, or you're allowed to have that conversation. But obviously, he's also earned the right in which to essentially refuse players if he so chooses. So we have to respect that decision, whether we agree with it or not. The other thing as well is that it could also be gamesmanship from Moyes. He knows the club is desperate in which to secure players and to bring in players, and he's understanding that there is a lot we need to do, and therefore, if what has been said now, let's take it with a big pinch of salt, that the board are the ones that are pushing Danjuma. That could be because they think economically it's a better deal for us, in the sense of the greater returns in the future should he perform well, and in 2 years he uses us as a stepping stone, and like Liverpool sign him for say 40, 50 million, whatever. Fine, that's fine. If it's them trying to get players in because they want players, and this is one that's been identified within the scouting and one they're excited about, and you can understand them wanting to have an opinion on their club. Now, I don't like Gold, Sullivan and Brady, but I'm going to be fair and I'm going to give some balance in this whole conversation, because it's always easy for us to batter the club and them. But you can understand if they are the ones pushing Danjuma, and obviously in that case, Moyes is stepping back. But I mentioned about it being a bit of gamesmanship. Maybe it's also Moyes is trying to use this situation to add a little bit of leverage on Lingard, in that you don't sign, I've got this guy already here to sign. And if I sign him, I don't need you. So it's maybe trying to push Lingard to give an answer, But also it could be that conversation point of it's Moyes pushing back to the board to say, Danjuma's not high on my list. On my list, my priorities go in this order, which is Lingard, Brozier, and then, maybe a centre midfielder, and then maybe Danjuma is here. So I want these players first before I'm willing to give up my budget on this player. So maybe it's also gamesmanship from him in which to say, I'm willing to consider this player. I'm maybe willing to bring in this player. But if I bring in this player, I don't want my budget affected, or I want to ensure that I have X amount in which to get my targets. So maybe it's just for balance. I don't necessarily even agree with this, but it's just for balance, is that maybe this 11th hour is maybe an exaggeration, but this, well, actually is an 11th hour because we only had the interest 12 hours ago. So
yeah.
How would change in this is that it's maybe Moyes pushing back a little bit to assert himself as to, I have my priorities. These are the players that I want first. And if I'm going to accept players that are maybe not high on my list, then I want some assurances that I'm going to get something back in return.
Yeah, I think for me it's important to distinguish what is happening with Danjuma, because there's kind of two options. There's one, it's being pushed by the board, like you mentioned, and it could just be pressuring Lingard into a move, or it could be, we've brought in Newman to kind of head up the recruitment and bring in these kind of players that we want. Moyes and Newman should be working together. So if they've identified Danjuma as a target and a player that they want, then it's different. Now Moyes saying and turning around and saying, well, I'm going to wait for Jesse Lingard, because then it really is him putting Lingard on a pedestal and we're then waiting for Lingard's move, because that I don't agree with. But if it's the other way around and the board or Newman have brought Danjuma to Moyes' attention and he's not keen, then we have to respect that. Like you said, I think Moyes has earned that respect. Whether we agree with it or not, we have to go with it. There's been occasions in the past where Moyes has passed up on players, the likes of Maddison, which we've definitely disagreed with and we've been proven right on. But there will be, other occasions where Moyes is probably proven right as well. So we have to balance it. And if Lingard hits the ground running again with us next season and we choose Lingard over Danjuma, we're not going to remember this. We're not going to care about this moment. So I think it's hard to find a balance, and it's important to kind of state why would we not want to sign Danjuma, because he's a player that can play as a centre forward or on that left wing. Both positions we need a player in, and Lingard will play, or he can play through the middle or as a striker, but he's not going to play out on that left really. And Danjuma is more of a natural left winger than he will be. So I think it comes down to Moyes' preference and what he actually wants.
Well, let's also caveat that by saying we've almost had this exact same situation over the past couple of windows where we could have got Klozek, who would have been a lot cheaper, and we have a Czech owner who owns the club that Klozek plays for. So if it was board driven, and look, again, I'm not sticking up for the board at all, because GSB out, but it's
always and forever.
Yeah. It's a confusing one for me, because if it was a board driven signing and the board are essentially, saying take it or leave it, we're going to we've got this player available, surely they would have done that with the younger, cheaper, lower wages player who knows other players in the squad, as opposed to the potentially temperamental Danjuma. It doesn't make sense to me that would be an option.
Yeah, and I think it was also suggested that Newman was one of the ones that actually favours Danjuma as well. So it's obviously been a collective conversation between all, and probably a player, as we know that Sullivan is obsessed with strikers and flashy wingers. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine that, he's got his little nubbin all happy around this situation around Danjuma. And, he's probably wants to, let's face it, it sounds like an opportunistic deal has come about that if we go by what's been said, the agent offered him we've then progressed and moved forward. Moyes has obviously held off. There are obviously reasons to that. I think personally the temperament piece has been used because it's that's David Sullivan now. But I think, the temperament argument's been used to give us an out if the deal doesn't go through, because we can say, look, there were concerns after conversation. That's why we haven't done it, because of our squad. We have a good mentality. But I don't think that's necessarily the problem. I think it's maybe that they want to push forward with a particular player. Moyes isn't too keen and wants to take his time and assess his options. But also I think he has a list of priority signings and he's not as high as, say, Lingard and Brozier. Because that could be the problem, that if this comes out of the budget, he may not have the budget then for Brozier. So it could be it's a negotiation between board and Moyes, and the board potentially, let's just say potentially, we don't want to say they have, let's say potentially they have gone out to the media in which to apply some pressure to the situation. And that's what they're doing. They're adding pressure to the situation to encourage a quicker decision.
Well, Mike, let me just stop you there, because Richard Stokes has just touched on that. He says, hi guys, I wonder if the Danjuma situation is kind of hyped, is invented to make Jesse Lingard make that decision, because at the moment it looks like Danjuma wants to sign for us. That's what is being reported. He's interested in a move back to the Premier League and sees it as a good step in his career. Are we seeing that from Lingard? Are we seeing that desire to sign for West Ham?
I think he's still on holiday, isn't he?
Yeah,
so that's the thing. He's still on holiday. But as of tomorrow, he's not getting paid anymore every week. So
let's also say that it was mentioned in the update that they were talking about, Danjuma wants to go to the World Cup, wants to have a great tournament, wants to represent Holland. These are the reasons that we signed Lingard. So even let's say he goes to the World Cup, has a sensational tournament, and Holland do well. We should learn our lesson from Payet, and if he is a bit difficult and he's only here for like a season, sell him in the summer. Sell him in the summer while his stocks are high. Like, you've got to learn when to sell. Exactly. And if you have one player who is outstanding, goes away on international duty, has a great tournament, comes back, can help you progress further, and then in the summer, people are going, take 60 million, take 80 million. And you're secretly going, we're going to get this guy off the books, or if he's, and you can improve, do it. Why would you not? It doesn't make sense to me. And that I think that doorbell was probably Danjuma's agent.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Here's your fee.
What did you say about his attitude?
But the funny part is, the thing that I find amusing is that I would have thought that probably when we were all in our teens watching football, players like Danjuma would have been called a maverick or a personality. Now he's a troublemaker and he has issues in a team.
Yeah,
those players used to be looked at as the maverick. They're difficult to deal with, but if you get them on their day, you have to have them in your team. The Harry Redknapp special type player. Let's face it, one of our favourite players for most people is Paolo Di Canio. The guy was trouble. No matter how you look at it, you listen to the stories of when at training where he would go around kicking the crap out of the training room and in games having tantrums, throwing stuff around. Now you'd go, well, that's a troublemaker, that's a problem. But the moment you got that player motivated, what a player you had. Fans loved him, players loved him. They also hated him. But when they think back now, they talk about him and revere him. So it's actually having someone who doesn't, arguably, let's put it this way, someone who's not robotic and just fits I'm a good guy, I play football, I do interviews, I'm nice. Do we have too many of those and we've become too sanitized with players and personalities that when someone is a bit more abrasive, a bit more abrupt, we all of a sudden go, oof, that's a troublemaker, can't have that in the dressing room.
Well, we also seem more than happy to, I hate saying it, but, Zuma's hardly painted himself in a good picture.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, I'm really kind of questioning the ethics. If we're looking at Danjuma going, you know, he doesn't drink, it might ruin the atmosphere. And like, who's deciding what's good and bad here?
Well,
Yeah,
I think it's just important.
It's questionable, isn't it?
I think it's just important to kind of establish what kind of attitude he has, whether it's going to be detrimental to the squad, and he's, you know, slagging everyone off and doesn't want to be there when things go wrong, or he's I don't want to compare him to someone like this, but a Cristiano Ronaldo type figure who demands the best. And if he gets subbed off, he's not going to be happy about it because he thinks he can do better on that pitch and he wants to perform and showcase his talent. You know, that I think that's the clear difference in I think that's the misinterpretation here. I don't think Danjuma, well, we don't know, but I don't think Danjuma is going to do the first option. I think we've already seen last season the quality he has and the numbers he can produce. So if that's him with an attitude problem, imagine we got him to West Ham and he was loving life. Like, it's a strange one, but yeah, let's just see how it goes, because we can sit here all day talking about Danjuma. We know Moyes will pick Lingard 100 times out of 100. So let's see now. Tomorrow, Lingard will be a free agent. So I guess the pressure is going to be on him because our preseason starts in 12, 13 days.
Yep.
We don't want Lingard, you know, who hasn't played football for the majority of last season, coming back in when we have Man City in our first game. We want him to be part of that preseason squad. So we can't just sit around for Lingard all summer. I think that's the main point. But I think Moyes will eventually get to that point where he's given up on Lingard, but he just can't seem to let go. That's the most frustrating thing.
I genuinely don't think Lingard will be off the table until the season starts or he signs for someone. That's how I see it. I think with Danjuma, ultimately, I think the refreshing thing is that one of the points was that his camp is calm about the situation. So I think some of this has been overblown as to what's
100%.
gone on. I think we've just taken a pause because everything's come about very quickly and it's moved very quickly, and we're just taking a moment to reassess. So if I'm just going to be a calmer influence on this situation, I think that we're maybe just taking a moment to reassess because everything's moved very quickly. The only problem is we are going to break our Monday signing routine if we don't sort it out, which is going to be disappointing. But the way Moyes is, and if Moyes has concerns, ultimately I think it's going to come down to not only Danjuma, but also Danjuma's agent and the board in which to sell themselves. I think basically Danjuma's going to have to sell himself to Moyes and have an interview. So it'll be like, what are your strengths? I'm a good player. What are your weaknesses? I can be an arsehole, you know, and it's then how do you expect to resolve those issues? By winning games. You know, it's that kind of thing of I'm like you, Moyes. What I do is I win. You know, it's that kind of
Well, I guess I think it's just really important that we don't ponder too long, because we don't want to miss out on targets while waiting for Lingard all summer. And we're going to see it not just with this position, but left back is an extremely important position for us to address. And two of our targets in Malacia and Windau have now signed. It looks like Windau today's gone to Ajax for 10 million. He was another player we were trying to get a deal for. So that's another player gone. But, just touching on that left back situation briefly before we end, we've got Joachim Mailer. I don't know how you say it, but he looks Mailer. He looks like he's going to be now our number one target. I know you've done a thread on him on our Twitter as well, Mike. So make sure to go check that out. I haven't done one on him, but I can. Oh, you haven't? Okay, but there's stuff there. But that was about it. There's information on him and the type of player he is and what he would bring to the squad. So if you want to see a nice in-depth report of that, we will produce that as well, because it looks like he is now the number one target. I guess now it kind of stems to the question is this now going to be a situation where we have to start pushing for positions and we can't afford to wait? And especially at left back with, pre-season about to start, all we have is Cresswell right now and Mazawaku, to be fair. But do we need to start getting these crucial positions, not the luxury players like a Lingard who will be, in or thereabouts, and we already have players in that position that can play there, but if we want someone to be our first team starter at left back next season, which it looks like Moyes wants, and it looks like Cresswell is going to be that second left back, do we need to get them in sooner or later and get them embedded into the squad and how we want to play?
Well, we keep hearing about David Moyes pre-seasons, like how much fitness he demands of a player. So surely the best option is to just get them in the door as soon as you can. If you have your targets laid out, If Broja's our number one target, yeah, fair enough with Chelsea, maybe not moving as quickly as they could. That one's understandable. But if he's Moyes' number one target, as soon as he becomes available, get him in the pre-season and get him going. Try and get him there as quickly as you can. But in terms of players, in terms of positions like left back, centre mid depth, it's so important that we get these players in early, get them a full proper Moyes pre-season, which we've heard is brutal, and get them to the fitness levels that he expects. People forget that depth signings, they're going to need to be sharp and 100% fit as well. People say, oh, he's just coming back from injury, he might not have match fitness. That's fine, but they would have still had a full pre-season before, and even while they're recovering, they're going to be doing fitness work. So we need to make sure these players are ready to play, but also to play a 90 minutes, even if it's just coming off the bench. They need to have the fitness levels to start a game if necessary. So I would try and get them in as soon as possible.
I think as well, the only player I can think of that we've actually signed who's gone straight in, that hasn't come from the Premier League, was Souček and Sufal. But otherwise, I can't name a player that has come in with Moyes. Even when you think of when Moyes first came in, Fornals at that period, I think he had about 4 goal contributions in 4 games prior to Moyes coming in. Mm-hmm. But then he dropped him, I think, after 1 game where he didn't have a contribution, and then played Lanzini for about 5 or 6 games consecutively when he was, to be brutally honest, awful and was not producing at all. And he refused to play Fornals because basically he didn't know him, therefore he didn't trust him. And even though he'd been in a vein of form where he was contributing to the team, it was, will you be contributing to the team when I wasn't here? I know this player, I'm playing this player. So this is why I think with Moyes, you always need someone in early. Obviously, it also goes against a little bit his natural compulsion because he likes to take his time and consider, and he has in the past tended to do his business later in the window, which kind of counterintuitive based on how he likes to bed people in, have a good view of them before he assesses whether their readiness. So it's a weird transfer policy that he's had in the past when you think of how he then does his induction, his integration into the team. So you would say you need him in early. And Merla is, he is, as many people said, but he's right-footed. He is right-footed, but I don't see many people turning around and saying Cancelo isn't a good left-back because he has a right foot. The fact is, Merla's much the same. He's Cancelo light, as I like to put it, but he will take you on the outside, he will take you on the inside. He will use his left or his right foot. I put up retweeted the assist he did for Denmark. I think it was in the Euros. Yes. Where he takes a player on the outside and just clips it with the outside of his boot. And it's an incredible cross. And that's on, yes, it's his strong foot, but he's running down the left flank and he's just clipping it over. And it's just perfection. But to have a player that can go either direction is also fantastic. If you're an inverted winger or an inside forward coming in off that left flank, to know you've got I've got players either going to burst down the outside for me and give an overlap, or I'm going to be able to play the ball down the wing and he's going to just underlap them, collect the ball, and he can whip it in. For a defender, it's a nightmare because it's like, well, which way do I go to defend? Because I can track inside and someone's going to go this way. If I come out wide, then I've got someone running down inside of me. So it's a great option to have. Yeah. And I feel like we do need to make a move sooner or later. And obviously now we've moved too late for Malacia. We've moved too late for Windle. So Merla, fortunately, doesn't seem to have interest, but we need to move soon. Obviously, it was interesting today. There was also links again with Hickey, Souza, and Rom. Again, they're all wing backs. They're not left backs. So whenever you see people say, "Oh, get them in," well, we play a 4 at the back system. We have played a 3, but we play predominantly a 4. So you're suggesting getting players that are more comfortable in an advanced position where their defending isn't necessarily their primary option or primary action. It's more about going forward, being progressive and attacking. And with someone like Sousa, it's a fantastic left wing back. But dear God, you put him at a left back, you are potentially asking for problems. It is Arthur Masuaku with better attacking and better crossing. Doesn't have the skill, but he's a big lad, he can get forward, has a bit of pace, can put in an absolutely phenomenal cross on his left foot. And is very good going forward. But the moment you take him the other direction, he's rash, mistimes his tackles, concentration's not there. You're essentially putting a better Arthur Masuaku at left back, and you know what that means.
Exactly. I mean,
go forward, but not the other way.
It's go on, Bassi, you know, he's played in European competition. He's young, London lad, and he's an absolute unit. Like, we've seen him play left back, we've seen him play left centre back, but if he's got that ability to do that, and we're getting rid of Diop, then I would bring in Bassi. You know, rumours of 20 to 25 million. I don't think it's potentially 15 million, and you know, from the Diop sale that goes 15 million with Myla deal. So you're looking at 30 million for two long-term left backs who could rotate and add depth. As you said, I think there's some interesting links. I think Hickey's very talented, but I think he's also very limited at the moment. He's very slight, and that's something that kind of really worries me at the Premier League level. He's not got outstanding pace. When you look at the kind of Scotland competition for him, in terms of he would have to beat Robertson to get to that left back spot, you know, he's not going to do that. He's nowhere near that.
He's played right back and right wing back as well, isn't he? So he's ambidextrous. So again, it's that other thing he can play on the right hand side. So for Scotland, he'll be a right back, essentially. But
then you've got so it's.
I guess it's tough because I mean we've got a comment here saying I think we should keep Masuaku for next season or look to move him on to allow Longelo some game time. But going back to Mela just briefly, you look at kind of Man City and the way football's kind of progressing. Having a right-footed left back can actually bring a lot of advantages because, like you mentioned, Mike, he can go on the outside or he can come on the inside and make things happen on the inside of the game and not just be that attacking outlet, you know, overlapping fullback as people like to see. Because I think people do like to see the left back and right back be left and right-footed, overlapping your wingers, and that's kind of the traditional way. But actually, with the way things are progressing and the way football is going, there are people that are evolving. There are positions that are evolving. I think people will have reservations, but then you look at Ben Johnson last season, arguably better at left back than he was at right back. So there are exceptions. I'm not saying it's going to be a success. In terms of your question here, H. Peters, but I don't think we should be keeping Masuaku. We need to get a new left back in who's going to be a first team player that can play in a back four. And Longelo, again, is a player we like, but isn't necessarily someone Moyes will probably take a chance on or can be ready to start. So we do definitely need to upgrade. And Milo, like you mentioned, is a player that can do that. And he is an upgrade and it's an exciting signing if it does happen. And I think most people will say because he's right-footed playing on the left, and you don't normally see a left-footed player playing right back. I don't think so. Anyway, I've never really seen that. So I guess it's easier for a right-footed player to be better with their weak foot than a left-footed player to be better with their weak foot. So I think if he's comfortable on both feet, then there's no issue with it. You know, he's going to be absolutely comfortable playing left back or right back. And we also have Ben Johnson who can operate on both as well. So it gives us other options and it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot more transfer talk coming up anyway. You know, by the time this has gone live, we've probably missed about 3 new updates on Danjuma and Lingard. But we'll have to keep an eye on it because, you know, last night we were all going to bed absolutely buzzing and then deflated within about 12 hours. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. I'm sure we'll be doing transfer streams every day because there's just non-stop. But you know, it's a good thing. At least we're getting linked with these players, and things look like they're progressing. We've already made 2 signings. Important to touch on that as well. But we do need to address positions. You know, left back, central midfield, striker. There are positions we do definitely need to address. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see how it progresses, and I'm sure at the weekend we'll have some more updates as well for you guys to look at. And there'll probably be about 5 more players that have been linked. We'll forget about Danjuma, you know, and we'll go on to the next one. I've forgotten about Januzaj. I forgot we even got linked with him like last
His
week.
agent's
So
he's peeking through the back windows of Mike's house.
He's at the doorbell now, just waiting.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Anyway, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Babbling Irons. We do some great scout reports. Well, Mike does some great scout reports, and any players we get linked with, we will be on that like a rash. And yeah, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. We are closing on 100 subscribers, so make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and comment down below. Do you think Moyes is correct in how he's approaching the Lingard situation? Or do you think he's open to criticism? Is anyone, you know, immune from that criticism? But we'll see how it goes. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, come on, you Irons.